Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Chana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Chana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Brajrandana Yashoda Nandana Brajrandana Yamuna Chira Panachari Yamuna Chira Panachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Brajrandana Yashoda Nandana Brajrandana Yamuna Chira Vanachari Yamuna Chira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Radhikacharya Astadars of the Sishimari Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Dharam Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, we should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Lord Narayan, unto Nara Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 25, the characteristics of King Puranjana. Text 48, translations and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Nalini Nalini Cha Prag.
Nalini Nalini Cha Prag.
Nalini Nalini Cha Prag.
Nalini Nalini Cha Prag.
Dvara Vekatra Nirmite.
Dvara Vekatra Nirmite.
Dvara Vekatra Nirmite. Avaduta Sakastabhyam. Avaduta Sakastabhyam. Vishayam Yati Sarvam. Vishayam Yati Sarvam. Nalini Nalini Cha Prag. Dvara Vekatra Nirmite. Avaduta Sakastabhyam. Vishayam Yati Sarvam. Nalini Nalini Cha Prag. Dvara Vekatra Nirmite. Avaduta Sakastabhyam. Vishayam Yati Sarvam.
Nalini Nalini Cha Prag. Dvara Vekatra Nirmite. Avaduta Sakastabhyam. Vishayam Yati Sarvam. Nalini Nalini Cha Prag.
Nalini Nalini Cha Prag.
Dvara Vekatra Nirmite. Avaduta Sakastabhyam. Vishayam Yati Sarvam.
Nalini Nalini Cha Prag.
Nalini Nalini Cha Prag.
Dvara Vekatra Nirmite.
Dvara Vekatra Nirmite. Avaduta Sakastabhyam. Vishayam Yati Sarvam.
Word meanings. Nalini,
Nalini.
of the name Nalini.
Nalini.
Nalini, of the name Nalini.
Nalini.
Cha, also. Prak, eastern. Dvaro, two gates. Ekatra, in one place. Nirmite, constructed. Avaduta, of the name Avaduta. Saka, with his friend. Tabhyam, by those two gates. Vishayam, place. Yati, used to go. Saurabham,
Sarabha,
of the name Saurabha.
of the name Sarabha.
Translation, similarly, in the east, there were two sets of gates named Nalini and Nalini, and these were also constructed in one place. Through these gates, the king, accompanied by a friend named Avaduta, used to go to the city of Sarabha. Please repeat. Similarly, in the east,
Similarly, in the east,
there were two sets of gates
there were two sets of gates,
named Nalini and Nalini,
and Nalini and Nalini,
and these were also constructed in one place.
and these were also constructed in one place.
Through these gates,
Through these gates,
the king,
the king,
accompanied by a friend named Avaduta,
accompanied by a friend named Avaduta,
used to go to the city of Sarabha.
used to go to the city of Sarabha.
So Prabhupada's purport. The two gates named Nalini and Nalini are the two nostrils. The living entity enjoys these two gates with the help of different avadutas or airs, which constitute the breathing process. Through these gates, the living entity goes to the town of Saurabha or aroma. In other words, the nostrils, with the help of their friend, the air, enjoy various aromas in the material world. Nalini and Nalini are the pipes of the nostrils, through which one inhales and exhales, enjoying the aroma of sense pleasure. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane Vanchakalpa Turubhyasta Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. What's one of the first things when you go into a department store? What's one of the first counters you come to? Cosmetics and perfume, yeah. Big industry, the perfume industry. And there was an old cartoon, I can't remember what the name of it was, but there was this dog that used to, like in the cartoons, aroma would have like a squiggly line, And there was this dog that would, I don't know what the preparation was, cookies or something, but he would smell, dogs have this enhanced smell, scent of smell, and the dog would go into like this ecstasy smelling, and then it would rise up and it would like on a like lying down, and he would float up in the air, and then he would go as he came down. It's like ecstasy. So this is a big allurement, of course, all the senses, but something to be contemplated, how we're entangled. This whole chapter is quite elaborate, how we're entangled in the body and the senses and the mind and so on. And Krishna, when he speaks to Arjuna, first he talks, he says, when Arjuna is bewildered about his duty, and Krishna's first response is like, wake up, you're not the body. And then he gives all the description of the nature of the soul, its eternality, its indestructibility, never born, never dies, and so on. So he kind of hits Arjuna right from the top, right at the transcendental platform. But then he sort of steps it down a notch and brings it to the realm of, well, if you don't fight, you'll be dishonored. You know, what could be worse than that for you? So he's giving a holistic on every level, but he's starting out with the transcendental level, but then he's bringing it down to even living in this world. If you don't do your duty, it'll be problematic. So navigating our body, our bodily necessities, the desires, but at the same time minimizing to what's required is the yogis. And then as Krishna progresses in the Bhagavad Gita, the second half, first he gives sort of the first half is Sankhya philosophy and sort of dissecting what's going on with the soul. But then he shifts into, Arjuna asks, you know, well, how do we recognize someone who's on this transcendental platform that you're speaking of? And then Krishna describes not so much direct, you know, there is some mention of devotional service, but there's not a whole lot of God talk. It's mainly about dealing with the mind and the senses. Because without, in a Nectar of Instruction, I think it's in the preface, Prabhupada describes one's first business in spiritual life is to control the mind and senses. Because without controlling the mind and senses, you're not going anywhere. The famous example of the chariot of the body, if the intelligence isn't holding the reins, the mind, then the senses, the horses are going to careen all over the place. So sort of first things first, and an example I thought was appropriate is that when someone is like addicted to alcohol or drugs or something, there may be an underlying cause. Sometimes they say people are self-medicating. They have some underlying issue, some trauma or whatever, some dysfunctionality, and they're medicating with these, or they're just suffering in general, just trying to be relieved from suffering. So, but without first stopping the problematic drinking or drugs or whatever, you can't really address the underlying issue. You have to first like calm the mind and senses down before you can start kind of looking internally at like, hey, what's going on? Why am I behaving in this way, which is self-destructive? So sort of the underlying problem, it begins way back in chapter or text 10 of this chapter when this is Narada, right? Narada is speaking to King Prachina Barishi. So he talks about, there's a friend named Avigyata, the unknown one. No one could, so it's, first he said, in the past lived a king named Puranjana who was celebrated for his great activities. He had a friend named Avigyata, the unknown one. No one could understand the activities of Avigyata. So the real, it sounds a little funny, but the real issue is our relationship with Avigyata, with the Lord in the heart, or the lack of our relationship. We have a dysfunctional relationship, therefore we've, sort of been jettisoned into the material world. We didn't want to, cooperate with Krishna. And Prabhupada said you can sum up the whole philosophy of Krishna consciousness in 5 words. Krishna is the supreme controller. So we don't like to be controlled. Just we're kind of rebellious like that. And sometimes it's celebrated, to be rebellious. And that was kind of the spirit of, in the 60s, rock and roll. It was like this rebellion. We will not submit to the man. We will rebel. We will not conform. So we have like children, they don't like to be controlled, they just want to go everywhere. And, you see children, they're like, until they develop some maturity, they're kind of all over the place, and what's the first thing? They try to put everything in their mouth, that sense of taste, that's how they sort of process the world, they put everything in their mouth. So Prabhupada described, and Lalita Priya very nicely was describing the difference between animals and humans, and that human beings can inquire and ask questions. So another way Prabhupada describes the difference between a human and an animal is that humans have the ability to control their senses. Prabhupada gave the example of the cows wandering in India, and the cows will, just walk up to the sweet shop or whatever, and then, you always see the walrus like, keeping the animals away. One time I was in Vrindavan and I was sitting at one of those like cantinas right across the street from Krishna Balaram Mandir, and I don't know what I had, whatever I had, some yogurt or something. And suddenly I was sitting there and all of a sudden, this cow had come up to me and was like, this big old snout, and I was so naive when I went to India. I thought, oh, isn't this cool? The animals everywhere, like, ooh. And I was in, Prithu, I think it was Prithu. We had this ashram, this kind of close to Krishna Balaram Mandir, and that's where I first parked myself. And I came out, and it was all, after that whole, 36-hour ordeal flying, and then the taxi and so on. And so I come out the first morning, and it's all like, ooh, I'm in exotic India. And then all the monkeys, are there. And I'm like, it's like, here, kitty, kitty, kitty. I kind of walked up to a monkey, and the monkey went, and it just scared me like crazy. And then, one of the, what do they call them? The chowkidar, hop, 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 chasing the monkeys. So the animals, they're not so, they don't control their senses. They're driven by their senses. So again, going back to Arjun's, description or inquiry, how do you recognize someone who's situated in transcendence? Is that they have stita, they're steady in mind, and their senses are under control. And again, that's a preliminary step. And when our senses are not in control, what happens is it really causes a lot of anxiety, because when we're not living a life of integrity, when our values do not match our choices, or you could say our choices reflect our values. But, when we take up Krishna consciousness, we're adopting, and we're not just adopting, but we're reawakening our genuine values, and most important value is our relationship with Abhigyata, the Lord in the heart. And Krishna manifests externally as a spiritual master. That Lord in the heart manifests externally as sort of like an intervention or a therapist, if you will, like to help us resolve our issues with the Lord in the heart. And, when people have relationship issues, they go to a third party to help them sort out, the issues. So it just so happens that Krishna, who is the Lord in the heart, is directly playing that role of spiritual master for Arjuna. But the spiritual master is he is a manifestation of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Servitor Godhead. So, but anyway, I thought, just reflecting on my own anxiety and why I just slip into a dysfunctional state is when I'm not living according to my values. I've adopted these values has been given to us through the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and the Shastras. And there's just this underlying anxiety. I know I should be behaving some way. I know what I'm supposed to do, but for some weakness, Prabhupada describes at the end of the 15th chapter in the purport, it's important to surmount the weaknesses of heart. The first weakness is, that we have this sense that, we are the enjoyer of this world. It's a weakness. And then the second weakness is that while you explore this so-called enjoyment, you become attached to the possession of matter. These are, things in relationship to, we need a vehicle to play out this fantasy of being an enjoyer. So here we go, we get the body. And then things in relationship to the body are mine, my possessions. And it's amazing how attached we can become to material possessions. And when I lived in my van, you couldn't accumulate too much because there just wasn't much space. You'd really be, but as soon as you get an apartment or something, you start filling in the closet with stuff and this and that, and unless you're regularly purging, it just seems like, I've been in this apartment now for 8 years and I try to go through my stuff. It's like, God, I can't live like this anymore. It's just so annoying. They call it visual noise. It's like if you go in an environment that's very noisy, it's distracting, it's disturbing. So visual noise, when you have too much stuff, it's your mind is disturbed. And Rupa Goswami describes, of the six, many, but primarily the 6 causes of fall down. One of them is atyahara, over collecting, overeating, over collecting. It just causes the mind to be disturbed. And without a peaceful mind, there's no question of going inward to meditate on Krishna and cultivate, or work through our issues with Krishna. So, I don't really have a whole lot to say about, this particular, the purport's brief and talking about the sense of smell. But if there's anything so far that triggered a thought, you can share it with me. Otherwise, I'll go to the next verse. If that's all right. So the next verse, text 49. Mukhya nama parastadvas tayapana bahudanao vishayao yati purarad rasagya vipananvitaha. The 5th gate, situated on the eastern side, was named Mukhya, or the chief. Through this gate, accompanied by his friends named Rasagya and Vipana, he used to visit 2 places named Bahudana and Apana. Report. The mouth is here described as the chief, or the most important gate. The mouth is very important. The mouth is a very important entrance because one has 2 functions to conduct with the mouth. One function is eating, and the other speaking. Our eating is done with the friend Rasagya, the tongue, which can taste so many different types of foods. The tongue is also used for speaking, and it can speak of either material sense enjoyment or Vedic knowledge. Of course, here, material sense enjoyment is stressed. Therefore, the word rasagya is used. That Prabhupada was they were feeding him, or I don't know, the devotees were, I don't know, maybe speaking with Prabhupada, talking about how difficult it is to control the tongue. And Prabhupada like grabbed his tongue. He says, yes, I also have a tongue. Like, I know how tough it is, you know? So taking prasadam and chanting Hare Krishna, speaking Krishna Katha, the two most important functions, you know, in our realm of Krishna consciousness. And, you know, even if we're not able to offer foodstuffs in the most highest standard, we should do something. Like, we shouldn't just, you know, grab something without some kind of, at least, you know, grace, saying grace. Thank you, Lord. And it was funny. I was with Alan on Saturday, and he's very unique person. And there was a little cherry tomato that was lying down in the street, and I came downstairs to let him in my building, and you know, and he picked it up. It's like, you know, this is life. How can people just like, you know, just like, you know, so he, you know, he picked it up and, you know, washed it, and he was going to save it for, you know, and I thought, boy, that's really peculiar, you know, but then I thought, you know, it's right. It really is. It's life, you know, food. So, you know, the chief gate, you know, without food, that's our fuel, you know, you can't live. And it's such and in so many cultures, you know, sharing a meal together, it's such an important part of like a cultured society. And now you can see the deterioration, you know, I don't know about so much with other countries, but especially, you know, my experiences. I even as a child, I remember it's dinner time, come to the dinner table, you know, and my parents would be upset, you know, if you were snacking, or, you know, you're going to spoil your appetite. You know, it's important to come together and honor, you know, a meal together. It creates that shared experience is very important. And of course, you know, the idea of feeding guests, especially brahmanas, that the brahmanas represent the mouth of the Supreme Lord. So feeding a Brahmin, feeding a Vaishnava is how we actually directly we please the Lord more by serving the devotee of the Lord. So I thought this is like a nice mission statement. I came across, I was in that St. Augustine's Cathedral. It's just a half a block from my apartment. So it's like I'm in the Jesus zone, the zonal acharya I live in he's the zonal acharya for downtown. So I go in and I chant japa, and I was actually praying to Jesus. I thought, you know, why not? Jesus is the Shaktivesh avatar. What's the problem? You know, why can't I pray to Jesus? And I was praying to Jesus to help me understand Prabhupada, you know, to help me. And so much, you know, I was thinking how, you know, Krishna consciousness, the Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy, it's so expansive. There's so much. And you can really go down kind of a rabbit hole in, you know, you can get just lost, immersed, and maybe miss what the whole point is. The whole point is to develop your love for Krishna. And, you know, I haven't studied Christianity, you know, a lot, a little bit, but there's not as much philosophy expanded as in the Gaudiya Vaishnava, but there is a real strong emphasis on love and compassion. And, you know, as Jesus said, the greatest commandment is love thy Lord with all thy heart, mind, and soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. You know, so, you know, that's sort of like, you know, if we get all lost in the intricacies of philosophy, but we miss that Krishna's in our heart, and he's just waiting for us to turn to him, like the two birds in the tree, that example that's given in the Upanishads. So, and, you know, how do we cultivate that relationship with Krishna? There's a real strong emphasis in Christianity about prayer, you know, sitting and praying and communing with the Lord in the heart. And they don't, well, the Catholics, they have the rosary, but they speak a lot about sort of silent prayer, but getting the conversation started, as they say, like we just need to get, like if there's problems, first you just have to get the conversation started, like talk to the person who you're having problems with, or, we discuss, we need to get the conversation. It's really common now, you hear that, we may not resolve the problem, but let's get the conversation started. So chanting Hare Krishna is sort of like, let's get the conversation started with the Lord in the heart. This is, my dear Lord, all attractive, all pleasing Lord, please engage me in your service. And it's not so much that we're trying to accomplish something, but we're trying to be present for Krishna. He's already there, but we've ignored him. Like Shezika Prabhu was saying, how would you like it if you lived in a house with a roommate who ignored you? Just didn't even acknowledge that you lived in the same house. It would just be like, boy, talk about an awkward situation, it would be very uncomfortable. So Paranjana, this idea is the body, the living entities, the Puram is the body and the Jana is the living entity living in this body. So Avigyata, the super soul, the Lord, he's residing right along with the living entity, and he's the unknown friend, because we're ignoring him. And all, japa is just about, turning our head to the Lord in the heart. If we want our japa to become, if we don't feel like we're growing, if our love for Krishna is not, and subsequently our love for all living entities, if we're not feeling that, it's kind of like we're stuck, like, what's going on? I'm not moving forward, I'm not growing. And we become a little discouraged because, we're meant to, we're meant to expand, we're not meant to just stagnate, the living entity's dynamic, and our love is never going to reach a point where, okay, now I'm done. It's unlimited. It's ever increasing. We always hear it, ever increasing, ever fresh. So that if we're not growing, if our love is not developing, then we're going to feel dissatisfied. And is this working? Like I've been doing this for whatever, couple months, couple years, couple decades. But if I'm not moving forward, if I'm not progressing, then there's this discontent. And so there's always there are different metrics so we can understand if we are stagnating. And one of the most, for myself, one of the most recognizable characteristics that I'm stuck is that when I'm not appreciating others, and I'm finding fault, and I'm criticizing, it's Raghunath Bhatta has given us, we can opt out completely of that. He would not criticize anyone. Even someone was, quote unquote, a non-devotee, but Raghunath Bhatta said, they're serving Maya, and Maya is a pure devotee of Krishna, so they're serving a servant of Krishna, so let me honor them. We don't condone what they're doing, but we understand the fundamental identity of everyone, that everyone's a devotee of Krishna. And we do have the term abhakta, a non-devotee, but that's just on a functional level. On a fundamental level, everyone's a devotee. But we do use that language just to identify on a functional level. They're not acting in harmony with Krishna, but fundamentally everyone is a devotee. So how can I encourage everyone? How can I serve everyone? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I was reading the section of the glories of Haridas Thakur, and two purports almost back to back, Prabhupada had brought out Trinadapi Sunichina, Tarari Vasahishana, and Haridas Thakur exemplified that to such a high degree. that humility, and he never took offense, even when Ramachandra Khan had sent the prostitute to try to discredit, he was envious of Haridas Thakur's fame, and everyone was admiring him. So he said, he had that whole plan to send the prostitute to defame him. And Haridas Thakur knew it all along, what was going on, but he played along with the prostitute. Said, yeah, I'll satisfy you. Just let me finish my rounds, and so he tried. It was like he didn't like, oh, you're a non-devotee, get away, No, he tried to engage her, in devotional service. And if we're not able to directly engage somebody, at least, give them something, give them a smile, be kind, be respectful. And, to have this sort of condemning mentality, it's easy to get into because the preachers, the great acharyas, they do criticize the folly of material sense enjoyment. And sometimes we might adopt a posture of, sort of looking down our noses at people who are not on a functional level, trying to cultivate the relationship with Krishna. But, we have to be cautious. Don't judge a book by its cover as it goes. Just like with Vritrasura, he was apparently this horrible demon and he was stomping on the demigod, but he was a great devotee and he ended up, preaching to Indra, very, very exalted philosophy. So, but from an external purview, he appeared to be a demon. So, we don't know exactly where people are, in their heart. And they may just be, for the most part, people are innocent. They're just being, through bad association, they're being misled. There are demons, we're supposed to avoid them, but most people are simply being carried away by bad association. So our Prabhupada's, creation of ISKCON is to create an opportunity for people to have good association. And the most important association is through hearing. So anyone have some reflections, some realizations or questions? Yes, Gaurasundar Prabhu.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu. Your class is very enlightening. So if I have a comment or a question, that means your class is make me think. So as you say, people are we have to people outside, they're not bad, but they just need some good people to accept them, to be friendly with them. So I was thinking about what you say when we go outside for book distribution and Harinam, and even the people rejecting us, but we should show them, we are there for them. And also, like you say, we have to have a smiling, positive attitude, and people feel welcome. So that's something I always think. Our face expression, our attitude, how we approach people. They call that the body language, and people are accepting us when they see we are so perseverant. We smile to them. We get a positive, upcoming to them. We come to them with a lot of, we accept them. We don't reject them. So that is very, very important. Thank you for that. We appreciate, because I learned that, and by traveling to some place where there is no devotee, and I show people a lot of, I become friend with them. In Guadeloupe, I become friend with people. Even the people, they are not devotee, but they are very respectful. They're very respectful, very polite. They always say hi. So automatically, I have to respond. I feel like I have to respond to their kindness, and I become so friend with them. And by doing that, And people they're following us, but when they see a negative attitude, they don't want to. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're talking about the tongue here, eating and then speaking. So kind words are just like, isn't in the Bhagavatam, it talks about nothing pierces the heart, worse than harsh words, so, and similarly, nothing opens the heart, as much as, kind words. And there's a nice verse, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he describes Lord Chaitanya, he says, Lord Gaurasundar is the friend of the universe. He's most compassionate, the giver of the holy name. His bright, attractive, golden form is filled with supreme sweetness. His smile is enchanting, and the glance from his lotus eyes is very cooling. His words are full of love and are like nectar. And he says, may that Lord Gaurachandra, who is the best amongst the dancers, please manifest in my heart. So this is, Lord Chaitanya's, he conquers with his beauty. With his humility, he conquered, the staunch Mayavadi, Prakashananda, Saraswati. He was so humble, and people were so attracted, to that gentleness. And Prabhupada said, how do you recognize, a devotee to be a perfect gentleman, perfect lady? So gentle. Prabhupada also described dhira, sober. He was saying, first you have to become gentle. So you have to become sober. You have to become sense controlled. You have to be a gentleman. You can't just speak harshly. The senses have to be under control. This is a gentleman, as a cultured person, someone who's not just recklessly, moving in this world, So thank you. Yes, Chris Prabhu.
I just wanted to add something to the previous text about the nostrils, the breathing, and what you said about food. Food is life. Well, air is also life. And so there are 2 points about the breathing. One is the breath. Breath is life, and life is breath. And that's also on an etheric and spiritual levels. There's prana. We're breathing energy through. And the sinuses are one of the most sensitive senses in our body. We don't think of them as like the physical world, of the air and things like that. And the I don't know a lot of the details of this, but so on the other side, the second point is on the other side, there's a negative part to this too, which is if we're breathing air that is polluted, say with gasoline fumes from car exhausts, or if we're being overloaded by things which are supposed to be beautiful, like some kind of beautiful perfume, it's actually interfering with our sensitivity and the quietness that we can achieve with our mind. We're being distracted by what's in the air. So it's really important. And I think of all the senses as helpful in navigating Maya as a defense thing. So if I can smell everything's beautiful, maybe I can, and truly beautiful, not just like perfume covering things over, then I can maybe believe that I'm in a quiet, clean, peaceful state of mind and consciousness. But if I'm smelling horrible things, then I can be warned that I'm in a dangerous situation. And the term intoxication has the word toxic in it. And when we're breathing poisons or eating poisons or hearing poisons or viewing poisons, we're being intoxicated. We're being poisoned by what's coming in through our senses and our ingestion. And that's interfering with our spiritual consciousness. All intoxication is an interference. That's why it's one of the 4 regular principles to not get intoxicated. So it's not just alcohol and drugs and things. It's any kind of toxic, anything toxic that we're taking in. is interfering with our ability to be spiritually conscious. And that's fundamental. That's like our physical condition. These are on a physical level. If we're intoxicated, we're completely incapacitated. And we're not going anywhere, so we need to be paying attention to the simple physical environment around us to make sure that it's not wiping us out.
Excellent point. Thank you very much. And in the Bhagavad Gita in the 7th chapter, Krishna says, Punyo Gandhan Prativyam Cha, I am the original fragrance of the earth. So he says, I'm the taste of water, I'm the light of the sun and the moon, I'm the original fragrance of the earth. So the pure fragrance would help us become Krishna conscious. So to avoid the toxic would be contaminated. You're not able to perceive Krishna as the original fragrance. So great. Yeah, thank you very much. That was very helpful. Anything else? Are we ready? Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.